way we innovate or hacking the way we innovate. You can say the same thing two different ways, but whatever way you want to say it, it's all about we've got to change what we're doing at the moment. So whether we're talking about hackathons, who actually has attended a hackathon? I know everyone keeps asking you to put your hands up. So who doesn't know what a hackathon is? Anyone doesn't know what a hackathon is? Okay, so a few people don't, but not too many. Okay, so over the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in that space, but a few more general observations about hacking itself and where it's going and why it's important. This Shaping the Future Economy event the other day across the competition at the Ritz-Carlton was talking about what's going to happen in Singapore, how can we reposition the economy. Now, a lot of what we're talking about, every time we talk about digital disruption this, I've just come from a meeting earlier this morning where someone said, that doesn't seem disruptive enough. Now, the sheer fact that somebody is saying that doesn't seem disruptive enough is in the sense that they're expecting it just to happen. And so the one big thing that I think is missing in all of this is people truly understanding what the right mindset is. Now, developing a mindset, again, somebody asked at this event the other day, does the government have a policy on developing mindset? Now that kind of sounds a little sort of bizarre that you want the government to affect a change in mindset, but of course the government is doing that in many ways here by assisting the ecosystem in so many ways. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the mindset and weave that back into where that fits in with hacking and many of the things we're facing here in Singapore. So, anyone who's been, how many visitors, I know everyone's asked you this, how many people are from out of Singapore, not living in Singapore? Okay, most of you are here in Singapore, and for that matter, most probably have seen this slide a number of times. Now, this is very much a focus for Singapore and the Smart Nation strategy. These are the global trends that not only is Singapore facing, but of course every country in the world is facing these particular challenges. They're big problems, and they're not problems that individuals alone can solve. It's all about collaboration, cooperation, co-creation. And so attacking these problems is actually very relevant to the whole situation of talking about hacking the way we innovate, hacking the way we solve problems. What can we do differently? And Singapore, under the Smart Nation strategy, is doing an enormous amount of work in all of these, and the great thing there is solutions that Singapore is developing here, and we've certainly been involved in assisting, and many of you who have attended some of our events have been involved. These are solutions that can be taken internationally, and because they are global problems, we all share them. Just a couple of other macro trends just to kind of set where all this is going. Now, this is an Accenture stat. I've got just a few stats. There should always be a few stats. 25% of the global economy to be digital by 2020. Seems pretty reasonable to me. I mean, a lot of what we're doing at the moment, even if we're just doing business as usual, 2020, it's not very far away, sadly, but everything, it's now the digitization of everything, the internet of everything, it's moving at a great rate. And what comes from that? We can basically do anything, anywhere. These are major trends that are impacting us right now and will continue to accelerate. Akin to that, product to service. People are not buying products in the same way they were. Everything is now becoming a service. Things are moving to platforms. The rise of platforms. That's where businesses are. If we look at Airbnb, if we look at Amazon, we look at all the $1 trillion, so many of the unicorns are platform businesses. That's where it's going. That's what people want to be doing. We don't want to own assets anymore. We want to interface with other people, the different sides of the economy, how we balance it. We don't need to own the assets to build successful businesses. We don't need to own the assets to work together, to co-create solutions. Platforms, that's where it's going. Something like, I forget what the number, the trillions that is now in the S&P just on platform businesses is extraordinary. Facebook, I'm sure you're all users. It's kind of pretty scary, 1.65 billion monthly users. Now, that's roughly about 40% of the world's internet population. So that one platform has nearly, it's going to be half the world before too long. That's pretty influential. So what does that mean for all of this? How is that impacting what we're doing? Obviously, it's an amazing platform for us to co-create through and launch a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses that you've been seeing, apps or small businesses, get acquired by Facebook because Facebook's got the scale. It's got what everybody wants. You don't need to recreate. It's a big piece of the changes that we're seeing. But it's also very significant because so many people are using it. It shows a mindset. And that's why I keep coming back to a mindset. It's now a mindset of people sharing things on Facebook. I'm certain, I'm a baby boomer. I've been around for quite a while. And certainly the whole idea of Facebook is totally different to what I was using when I was in my teens or 20s. It's a totally different way of doing business. And we're going to see how that impacts a lot of the other things we're doing. Now, millennials. Who in the room are millennials? So I guess that puts only one millennial in the room. I don't believe that you're lying about your age. So millennials are anyone born roughly between 1980 and 2004. Actually, I don't understand why there's confusion, because some studies say 2000, some say 2004. Whatever. They're in that age group. You can do the math. Now, the millennials, there are 1.2 million millennials in Singapore. They comprise about 22% of the working population. It's now the largest segment of the working population in the US. I think it's something around 75, 76 million people in the US. And it's expected that by 2025, millennials will account for 75% of the population, of the working population in the US, and likewise here in Singapore. Millennials are different. Those of you who didn't put up your hand, you know you're different. You don't want to be taken for granted. But then again, when I read all this research, I think, yeah, I don't want to be taken for granted. I want to work for a company that likes me, respects me, has some sort of purpose. So I do wonder sometimes with the studies that come out in this area, because in some ways baby boomers and millennials, despite the difference in years, share quite a lot in common. But nevertheless, the millennials do want things different, and they are taking over. And that's a good thing. We don't have to fear millennials, all you wonderful millennials out there who will be employing me before very long. But millennials are thinking differently. Millennials use Facebook in a different way. They do different things. We need to understand, because millennials are actually rising up the work ladder very quickly. And so they will be in charge, and so their values and what they find important and how they want to fix the world, because they want the world to be a better place. It's very important to millennials. I'm sure the rest of you in this audience, if you're not millennials, want the world to be a better place. But it's very strong for millennials. They will be drawn to companies that have purpose. So, another little sidebar. What this is showing are the number of companies, courtesy of CB Insights, number of companies that are attacking P&G. Now, Procter & Gamble, as you know, major US FMCG company. And all these companies, because they're focused on design, they're focused on speed to market, they're getting in there and they're chipping away at little bits of P&G. It's a very interesting slide. However, there are lots of unicorns out there, but incumbents, those of you who are working for incumbents, don't fear. Incumbents are still doing pretty well. I think the top 10 unicorns account for 407. Top 10 startup unicorns on the S&P are worth around about 450 billion, but Apple itself is worth about that money. And the top 10 on the S&P are worth, I think, somewhere around 4 trillion. So, incumbents, you're okay for the time being. But the second you start to think that you're invulnerable, you are very vulnerable. So just having another little look at this, and we'll all sort of weave back in a while. Again, another FMCG story, and the reason I'm not picking on FMCGs, it's just the fact that there's good data out there. Time to market, if you can see, and I know I'll get this, 22 months to get a new product out. Pretty good is 15 months. The super ones are 4 and 6. It's taken quite a long time to get to market, plus failure rates. About 60%, it varies. You can read research will tell you that there are 80% of new products don't make it. Okay, so just on that speed, where are we going with all of this? We're changing. Everything today is moving from kind of old R&D. This is the first startup I was involved in back in '83. I joined an entrepreneurial workshop competition which involved writing a business plan. I wrote a business plan using a pencil and a rubber or eraser to do cash flow forecasts. So every time you changed your assumption, you had to rub it out and write it again. We don't do that kind of business planning anymore. It's lean startup, it's about fast, it's about experimentation, it's about getting minimal viable products out in the market quickly. FMCGs, what are they doing about this? I wonder why they're not doing more in this space. This particular chart, courtesy of Accenture, is talking about the trends of how incumbents can get more used to this kind of startup environment. There's different phases looking at corporate ventures, incubators, and then co-innovation, then ultimately kind of Nirvana, the ecosystem. Now, what we've been doing the last little while is quite a lot here in Singapore. We've run 11 different challenges, 30 hackathons, we've just launched 31. We've had 100 workshops, and most importantly, 100,000 hours of volunteer time. 10,000 people have come through our events in Singapore. And these people have just volunteered their time. Now, a hackathon, that's one version of a hackathon, Red Bull, coffee, and sleeping under the desk. But ours, we've kind of hacked the hackathon. We've done big ones. This one up here last year was for 1,100 people. The others are a bit more. We started out 4 years ago, 2012. Actually, 2 weeks' time is our anniversary, 4-year anniversary. We've taken a much more corporate approach to hackathons. This is a sample of the hackathons that we've run. Now, the idea behind these is that we work very closely with our sponsors to understand what they want to get out of it. They are very business run in terms of outcomes, or they can be very social. We've run a number of social activities, but for the corporates, we've got a very nice calling card of most of the major government agencies here in Singapore, as well as major corporates are getting involved in hackathons. Hackathons can be used for a whole variety of things. Now, and that's what's changing. People are using them to recruit people. In the US, Facebook runs many hackathons a year, as does Microsoft, as does Hasbro, as do most organizations. They can either be hybrids, where they have internal staff and outside staff, or it's just internal staff. It's about renewal. It's about getting people involved and energized. So when people say to me, why are you doing hackathons? Why do people want to co-create? What's it all about? These are the kinds of benefits. Now, the sort of benefits that you get, if you're a corporate, in particular, remember those corporates who are now employing all the millennials. Millennials want development opportunities. They want to see that they're being appreciated. Also, many of us are wanting to be involved in hackathons if we're coming from corporate fill in the country, because we want to understand what is this kind of speed of startups. We have a lot of startups join our hackathons for the very purpose, so that we mix startups with major corporates. They're co-creation activities. That's the whole idea. So you get benefits in that regard. By bringing in your staff, whether you do it internally or you attend external hackathons, as teams, you start to understand how you can break down silos. It's all, again, about coming back to millennials. They like new ways of working. They're all about collaboration. They work Facebook. They work Instagram. This is the way that they want to work. You need to think about how should we work. A hackathon is bringing people together for a weekend. During the course of that weekend, people learn a lot of skills. They learn a lot of life skills. They have a lot of fun. They develop great ideas. But most importantly, for the corporate ones who are just weekend warriors, they go back to work on Monday morning. The hackathon usually runs from Friday night to Sunday, sort of 6 o'clock. I've had many people come up to me after they've gone back to work and said, I went into a meeting on Monday morning, we sat down and we started to talk about Project X. And they said, it's going to take another 2 months before we finish this particular project. 2 months! Look what we did in 24 hours at this hackathon. That is a kind of way that people going back into the workforce, having had exposure to hackathons, not only is it the particular items that they've developed and created, but it's this energy that they get from the experience. So, my encouragement to you is to look at running internal hackathons. You all have off-sites. We've all been to endless off-sites, most probably in hotels like this, or occasionally we get to go to a nice resort location. We sit around and yes, we make 3M richer with lots of post-it notes. But do we actually make something? Do we move the dial? So the whole idea is to basically, with hackathons, is to get out of the building, get out there and start doing something different. Infuse yourself with this energy because we want that speed. We don't have time to write business plans, then go and check for the funding for the business plan and then build the product. We've got to be out there experimenting all the time. And the other thing is that you can use the hackathon down there, innovation with purpose. And again, if staff see you, and again I keep coming back to millennials because I see this as very important to us all as company managers going forward, we can use the hackathon to show what our corporation is about, what we're interested in, what we're passionate about. And so by doing all of these things, hackathons, people attending them, you running them internally or using external people to run them, or having hybrids, using them as recruitment drives, you can use them for a whole range of activities. You start to develop these benefits. These benefits ultimately start to become behaviours because it does become a new way of working. People listen to one another, people co-create. Once we start to develop behaviours, that starts to become the norm. Once we start to do that on a regular basis, then we come back to kind of where I started, and the mindset starts to change. We can't just flick a switch and say, hey, I need an innovative mindset. We have to do things. As with all changes in behaviour, all change management, we need some skills. We practice those skills, but we need to understand what are the right behaviours. And the behaviours that you can utilise in co-creation activities like hackathons or online challenges start to develop the right kind of behaviours that will then contribute to a mindset that says, yes, we can, to sort of misquote President Obama, but yes, we can be innovative, and just start doing it. Let's not have more conferences talking about what's going to make me innovative. Let's just start doing it. Sort of get out there and try things differently. Just try. Don't say that's not disruptive enough. Let's just try it. Let's just do it. Get going. Get to a hackathon. Have fun. See what you can build in 48 hours. It might be great, it may not be great, but you've done it. That's how I sort of went for the first time 4 years ago. I couldn't believe it. So with that, effective collaboration will end up with sustainable innovation. You can't have innovation today unless it's also sustainable. We've got sustainability baked into everything we do as we innovate, as we increase the economy through innovation. We're doing it appropriately. We're driving a sustainability agenda both environmentally and business-wise, and in that way we basically impact the world for good.